Hey everybody, it's Tracy Brown from Diversity Trends here live. And I am so happy to be hosting this series of very short, very quick, but jam-packed with information, 30-minute webinars during Diversity Awareness Month. Today's topic is inclusion tactics for supervisors and managers. And what I hope to do during our time together is give you a variety of ideas. In fact, 10 specific ideas that you can use if you're a supervisor or a manager to be recognized as a champion for diversity, to improve your comfort with diversity and inclusion, and to support your organization's commitment to diversity and inclusion, especially in the workplace, or if you are a member or a leader in a volunteer organization, a professional association, etc. So let's skip over to the PowerPoint slides and get going. Yes. If you've not visited us at diversity-strategy.com, I encourage you to do so. There are a variety of resources there during this month of Diversity Awareness Month, but also throughout the year. We update it pretty regularly, so go there for all the latest tools and resources and links to information that would be really helpful for you. So this idea came because I was talking with a client actually, and almost verbatim said to them, well, of course it's important to have a diversity and inclusion strategy, but it's even more important that people know what to do in order to make the strategy work. And there's this myth that I often talk about, that we think if people have more awareness, if they understand more, if they learn more information, they will automatically behave in ways that are in alignment with the organization's commitment. But that's not always true. In fact, I think it's less true than the reality that people understand things, but they don't necessarily know what to do with the information. And especially if they have not linked it together with why it's important for them or what's in it for them. And so my objective in our brief time together is, in 30 minutes or less, give you 10 specific tactics that you can use that will support your organization strategy. We don't have a lot of time. 10 is a lot to do in 23 minutes, so let's jump right in. Inclusion tactic number 1. Explain the impact of diversity or the benefit of inclusion for at least one agenda item in every meeting. This is something that is so easy to do. So often supervisors and managers think that, to think about diversity or inclusion, it's got to be something added to everything else I'm already doing. But the truth is, the best way to integrate diversity and inclusion into the culture is to integrate it with the things that you are already talking about that are important to the success of your business or your team. So, for example, if you are explaining a new procedure that is happening company-wide, but it's related to overall getting a certain business outcome, then there may be a link that's related to diversity and inclusion, because by doing this, by everyone in the organization receiving this information, it creates an environment where everyone has the information that's needed, everyone is working from the same page, and that results in a more inclusive environment. If it's a new project that's coming up and you're going to be looking for volunteers to do it, and maybe it relates to increasing market share in your organization. And really the reality of that, as you're talking about it, is is there's a link to diversity in that whatever increase in the market share you're going after reflects a need to know and understand and anticipate the needs of people you've not served in the past. And so it's important to bring in the fact that the diversity in the marketplace is driving you to do things differently or to reach out, or that people on your team need to do some research and understand what the needs are, what the expectations are for this new part of the market, or to go deeper and to expand that market share. There's almost always a diversity and inclusion message related to anything with marketing, anything with communications, anything with community service or public service, and anything related to decreasing expenses almost always will have a link to diversity and inclusion. So that's inclusion tactic number one. Inclusion tactic number two, ask for feedback. So often as leaders, we feel the pressure to be right all the time, and we feel the pressure to always have the answers. But the only way that we're going to get feedback from people about how we show up, whether we're inclusive or not, is to ask. And I would say, ask 4 or 5 people who you trust will be honest with you. Don't ask in the middle of a team meeting, because people are going to just say what they think you want them to hear. So I'm sorry, they're going to say what they think you want to hear about yourself. And so instead, ask one-on-one and ask several people things like, what inappropriate assumptions or generalizations do I tend to make? What advice would you have for me that would help our team work more effectively together? Are there any patterns that I have that really get in the way of me getting the best out of everyone? Questions like that invite people to give you feedback without saying you're all bad, without feeling that there's a lot of pressure, and that can be really, really helpful for you. But if you don't ask, most of the time, people won't give you the feedback unless or until you have upset them or offended them so seriously that now they're filing a complaint. And then they will unload all the stuff that they could have told you over the previous 6 months if you had only asked. Inclusion tactic number 3. Take advantage of company provided resources and events. I cannot even begin to count the number of times that I have asked mid-level managers in the companies that offer a variety of diversity-related programs and events. I'll ask the question, what's the last diversity event that you attended? And they can't answer it, or amazingly, many of them will say they've never attended an event, or they'll share with me that, well, they've attended 1 or 2 because their boss required them to go, or because someone who reported to them directly was on the planning committee for that one meeting, and so they went to support that individual. Companies that are offering resources on the intranet and events that connect diversity and inclusion to the business, go participate. Even if you think you don't have time, you really have to make the time because of 2 reasons. Number one, the company is investing to give you information that it believes will be helpful to you or to members of your team. And number 2, you need to be visible at these events so employees believe that you actually are committed, as is the company, to diversity and inclusion. And when you don't go, you send an unintentional message that you could care less, that you are not interested, and other employees will be not suspicious, but cautious. If you have an opening in your department and they feel that they're not really sure where you stand on inclusion, and they are in any way different from the norm in the company, and they haven't seen you at events, or they haven't, you're not able to talk about what you've learned from going to these events, they're likely not to take the position in your department. And so it's a really practical and pretty easy to implement tactic to simply take advantage of the resources that are available to you through your company intranet and any events that are sponsored. Inclusion tactic number 4. Be an active participant or member in at least one professional association where you're the minority. Why do I suggest this? I suggest it for two primary reasons. One, it's a professional association, so you are going to get information that is going to help you be successful in your job. However, you're going to receive that information from a different perspective that's going to help you interact with lots of different kinds of employees. The second reason that I really encourage you to do this is because when you do have openings in your organization, whether it's your direct reporting team or whether it's other jobs, so often we rely on our personal network, people we've met, people we've seen present, people who we have been at a meeting with and heard their opinions and got to see how they think, people we've been in discussions with as part of our professional life, and we know them a little bit, and so we refer them or we bring them in or we call them up and ask them, who do they know? Well, if you only go to professional meetings and professional association events that are with people who are just like you, guess what? You are simply adding more people who are just like you into your network. Your professional network for your own long-term career success needs to have more diversity than that. And so join a professional association where you are a member of the minority so that you can meet professional, skilled, qualified people who can help your career, who can support your recruiting efforts, and who can bring information to you from a different perspective than you already know. Inclusion tactic number 5, understand the distinctions between affirmative action, EEO, diversity, and inclusion. So often leaders, managers, supervisors will say diversity and they're really talking about affirmative action. And employees who know the difference just then write you off as like not up on it, not engaged. You really don't understand the difference in what's going on. This is not good. So affirmative action is all about the taking affirmative action to be sure that your workplace reflects, your workforce reflects the availability that's in your recruiting area. EEO is all about equal employment opportunity for everyone. Both of those, affirmative action and EEO, are primarily focused on a few specific categories of people, and they're very quantitative. They're really very much based on the numbers for those demographic groups. They are both affirmative action and EEO are enforced by government statute, and they are required for organizations at certain sizes. Diversity and inclusion, however, are completely voluntary initiatives. Diversity and inclusion both reflect all people, and so there are no quote unquote protected classes. Everyone is the desires for everyone to be valued and everyone to be recognized. Diversity is really about recognizing that everyone has differences and recognizing that those differences make each person unique, whereas inclusion is about what we do to create an environment where everyone is valued and everyone's input is used. So there's a much greater focus on the quality of the experience with diversity and inclusion, and it's important for you to use the word that most applies when you are in conversations. If you're in a conversation and you're talking about ethnicity and race, then use ethnicity and race. Don't use diversity, because you are sending out a message that you think diversity only is about race, racism, or race relations. And that is not what the definition of diversity is in most organizations' diversity and inclusion programs. So I just want to remind you that the reason we're talking about these tactics is because the overall goal is to support your organization's commitment to inclusion. And at Diversity Trends, we often share this achieving inclusion model to remind us all that awareness is about what we know, what we think. Alignment is about answering the question, what's in it for me to pay attention to diversity or inclusion? Action is what we're talking about today. What are the tactics that we're going to take? What are the things we're going to do? How will we show up, especially in this case as leaders, so that I meet my goals and I demonstrate awareness and I'm integrating diversity and inclusion into everything I do? And then accountability is the fourth factor of achieving inclusion. What will I be responsible for? How will I celebrate success? What kinds of things can I do that will actually help me be an effective leader? And so I've covered 5 of the action tips that actually will help you as a leader be be viewed, be recognized as someone who pays attention to diversity and inclusion. And I'm going to share 5 more with you. But I want to just make one comment that I think we sometimes forget, that one of the reasons it's so important for us to pay attention to what we're doing and what we're saying as leaders is because we really do want to have an inclusive culture. We really want everyone to feel included. We really want to offer the best services and the best customer service, the best products that we can. We want our teams to work effectively. And so if you don't already have it, you might be interested in downloading our Create an Inclusive Culture ebook. It's perfectly free. There's no sign up. I'm not adding you to a list. You can simply click and download it. And if you don't see the link on your screen, you can go to diversity-strategy.com. And under the Diversity Month 2014 tab, there's a link to the Create an Inclusive Culture ebook. It includes 20 tips, 20 action items that leaders can take. And I'm just thinking, I don't think there's any overlap between the 10 ideas I'm sharing with you today and the 20 items that are in the ebook, which is sometimes referred to as our A list, because each one of the actions, which starts with an A, each one of the actions start with the letter A. So I'm watching the time. We're going to jump right back in to 5 more of 10 things that you can do in order to be a supervisor that recognizes and practices that obvious that you are committed to diversity and inclusion. Let's look at tip number 6. Ask more questions and make fewer statements. Now, this sounds really counterintuitive because a lot of times people will say, well, I just need to tell people that I am committed to diversity and I need to tell people what I've done lately. But really, in your interactions with your staff, if you can ask more questions about what they're doing and what they're thinking and the approach that they're taking, they will feel more valued. And so you don't have to say that you are inclusive or that you value diversity. You actually demonstrate it. That instead of telling people how to complete that report, you might ask them, how would you complete this report? Or, you might explain, we really need to get this information to the legal department by next Friday. You could ask them, You know, how will you go about getting the information that we need? Or how will you structure the report so it will make sense to legal department, even though it already makes sense to us? If you ask why questions, typically you put people on the defensive. Why questions usually come out sounding like, well, why did you do it that way? A lot of the times your why questions are after the fact and they sound judgmental. Why would you ever take that approach? Why did you include that in the report? It puts people on the defensive. So ask lots of questions, but ask the how, or ask, you know, how does that help us achieve the goal? Or you can even say, wow, I was thinking about taking a different approach. Explain to me how this approach gets us to the same place. So ask more questions and make fewer statements when you have the opportunity to do so. And people will appreciate that you actually are trusting them to think through whatever the situation is. Inclusion tactic number 7, when you're interviewing to fill a position or to consider people for special projects, focus on skills, not comfort. So often when I talk to supervisors, they will say, well, you know, person A, B, and C all had, you know, a good background. They all had the basic requirements, but I just felt really more comfortable with person C. So I went with them. Your comfort is important, but it's not more important than in being inclusive in your team. In fact, I can think of one person I hired who I was okay with, but I wasn't real comfortable with her personality wise. I didn't expect that we would ever like want to hang out socially. And that was okay because she had some really, really good skills. And I thought that her style of communication was going to be a good balance because it was different from other folks on my team at the time. And as it turned out, that was one of the best hires I ever made because I was a little uncomfortable. It took me about 4 or 5 months before I started feeling comfortable with this employee, but she really excelled in her job and she taught me so much about her area of expertise where I had good generalist knowledge and I could supervise that area, but she knew a lot of detail and taught me things I didn't even realize I needed to know. And for the team as a whole, her communication style was really different. But when we got in a meeting together, that meant she asked different questions and she brought forth a completely different side of the project we were working on that the rest of us didn't think about because we were all comfortable with each other, but we all thought kind of the same way about things. And it was my job as the manager to make sure that this was done in a healthy way, that it wasn't a lot of conflict, that I invited her to bring forth her different approach and her ideas, and that I praised her when it worked to the group's advantage, that her approach or the question she asked gave us a different answer. So don't focus on your comfort or even what you think is just the best fit for the team. Balance that out by looking at the skills and then saying, how does this person bring a different view, a different aspect, or a different opportunity to us as a group? Tactic number 8, please monitor your distribution of both the regular work and special assignments. As a manager or supervisor, we generally will have 1 or 2 people who become our go-to person. I know this person will get it done. I know I don't have to explain too much. I know they'll do it the way I would do it, or at least to my standards of quality. When you do that over and over and over again, number 1, you're not fulfilling your role to develop everyone on your team. From a diversity and inclusion perspective, however, What you're missing is that there are a lot of different ways. And so maybe if it truly is a situation that's urgent and you need to turn something around in 24 hours or 48 hours, sure, go to your go-to person. But if it's something that you've got to turn around in a week or a month, or it's a special team that's working with people from different departments, it's partly your job to make sure that everyone on your team has those opportunities to stretch and to grow. And it's your job to coach them and to provide them with the resources they need to be effective in that. And if you don't do that for them, you're also hurting yourself because you're limiting your bench strength. Think of it this way. If you help someone who is good, but not stellar, develop some new skills, a year from now, they might be stellar. But if you don't, they're not even going to stay at good. They're going to stagnate because they're going to watch you giving assignments that they're interested in to other employees over and over and over. They're going to be demotivated and they will stop giving you their best. Inclusion tactic number 9 for supervisors and managers: give yourself a learner's permit. Many years ago, I started using this phrase, and really it was kind of a joke. I used it in a keynote speech one day and made the analogy of when you started driving. You thought you knew everything about driving. You'd been riding in cars for, 16 years at that time, and you just knew you knew how to do it until you actually got your learner's permit and you started demonstrating or started executing on what you thought it was to drive. And then you saw how complex it was. And now so much of that seems like automatic. You get in your car and you drive and you don't really think about every little detail. Well, give yourself a learner's permit as it relates to diversity and inclusion as well. There are many things that you know on automatic, but always be on the lookout for new information, for a new approach, for a new way to think about things, because that is where so much of the power comes from. And inclusion tactic number 10 is to lead by example. Leading by example is so true for just about anything as a supervisor and manager. People watch how we behave, what we say, what we do. And that says more than the things that we purport to believe. So our behaviors are critical, and I really encourage you to lead by example. Now, I'm curious, what additional tactics can you think of? Share these 10 that I've given you and share additional ones that you think of with people in your organization and see if you can come up with an additional 10 very specific tactics that you can use that support your organization's strategy related to diversity and inclusion. If you need some additional ideas, I've already mentioned that we have the ebook for you, Creating an Inclusive Culture, 20 Actions Leaders Can Take. Please download that and share it with others. We also are offering this series of webinars, and if you're listening to this after Diversity Awareness Month, the webinars are available on our YouTube channel, which is, of course, youtube.com, and then our channel is Diversity Trends, all one word, all lowercase. And we also have a 27-module course that might be helpful for you called Diversity Champions Unleashed. It's a web-based course, so you take it at your own pace, and you are able to go through each of the modules for 27 modules, and every module includes either an activity, an interactive activity that you can use and you can do for yourself and assess your own skill and your own knowledge, or sometimes it's more of a teaching module that gives you information that you can use in order to just grow your own awareness, applying tip number 9 of using your learner's permit. one of the things that I love about the Diversity Champions Unleashed course is that it really, really does a good job of helping you integrate what you're thinking or what you've heard about diversity and inclusion into the way that you actually show up. So for more information about Diversity Champions Unleashed, you also can go to diversity-strategy.com, and then on the Diversity Month 2014 tab, there is a link to the Diversity Champions Unleashed registration page, and it has information about all of the 27 modules and how you sign up and how you take the course. I was talking with someone a few days ago, and they said that they intended to take the course instead of a new lesson comes every day, but they said they were planning their schedule, so they would do a new lesson 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that they knew then there are 27 modules, so it was going to take them 9 weeks to go through it. And that's a really good pace. I have talked to some people who have done a module a day and have completed it in less than a month, and they've they have received good value from it as well. Yes, I'll learn to talk at some point soon, but they have received a lot of really good value as well. So if you're interested in that and that would be helpful for you, then I encourage you to either click on the link that you see on your screen or go to diversity-strategy.com and look for the link there. My name is Tracy Brown. I'm president of Diversity Trends. It's really been my pleasure to bring you 10 tips, inclusion tactics that you can use as a supervisor or manager to be responsive and to be a representative of your organization's diversity and inclusion strategy. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have more questions, just let me know. Until next time, Tracy Brown. Bye for now.